So it is on PD.
Okay. Is she in?
She is.
Okay. Hello, Anita.
She may only be on phone.
Okay, that's fine. She can follow what we're doing. Very good. Well, in that case, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I believe there was only one item on it. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chelmsford Planning Board meeting of Wednesday, September 21st. The item on our agenda is Fall Town Meeting Article Citizens Petitioned. And I think without further ado, we'll get into that. Go ahead, Chris, and then we'll open it up for any additional public comment, and then I hope we can take a vote on it tonight.
Okay, sounds good. So I figured I'd start off just by summarizing since the last meeting, what's been going on, and then I can go through some of the major changes in the slides. Since the last planning board meeting on August 24th, we've done significant revisions based on the planning board and public comments in that meeting. I emailed the revised version to the planning board and all the residents who did speak at that last meeting, with the exception of one person who I didn't have an email for. I asked for feedback from all those folks. I received feedback from 2 residents and 2 planning board members through email, and from Evan as well. I incorporated some of those changes into this version, and if I didn't include the suggestions and feedback, then I replied to those who provided it with the reasons why I didn't. I've also been working on the slides and an FAQ for town meeting. I'm presenting to FinCom tomorrow night and the select board on Monday. And I'll be emailing the town meeting slides that I'll be using for those presentations to all of you as well, and to the town meeting reps, because that will have the old article information and the new information and a lot more of the history that you guys don't have in these slides, because I've been working with you all along. And then what I'd like to do after reviewing the slides also is I did some additional work today and this evening with the help of the folks from the engineering department and town hall and the GIS manager to look at the potential impact to IA properties. So I wanted to go over that with you as well. And as I mentioned to Evan, I'll send electronic copies to you after the meeting as well.
Okay.
All right, so to go over the slides, you can skip to the actual warrant article number 1. So the old version here was really around, we talked about a building, we talked about repackaging and or shipping. We had a little bit of information here on the support facilities. After a lot of feedback from residents and all of you, I also found some definitions used at Prince William County, Virginia. They were developed in November 2020, and took some language from them as well on the definitions of warehouse and distribution center to help clarify that. I found that those definitions were a little bit easier to understand than the ones in Acton, so I incorporated a little bit of both into them. So the definition here explicitly includes shipping and or delivery to retailers and businesses, which includes the B2B and wholesalers that we were concerned about at the last meeting. It includes those as warehousing. And then the warehousing definition also excludes self-storage and distribution centers explicitly as defined in the other section. Okay, if you skip to Article 2, here we did something similar with the wording. and took a look at the Prince William County, Virginia definitions of a distribution center and really helped clarify and explicitly include and exclude some of the things. So if you look here, it talks about fulfillment by third parties for the above stated purposes. It talks about shipping to end users or the consumers. It talks about transport terminals being explicitly excluded. And also, we talked about in the article about distribution centers not being defined as a retail use that may have an accessory delivery component. So the Walmart or shopping grocery stores that may have a delivery component would be excluded from this definition. Okay, and then the sizes, we kept at 20 for the small distribution center. The medium, we left at the 20 to 75,000, and then the large, we kept it greater than 75,000. And then the use table did not change. So do you have any questions on those, or do you want me to talk a little bit about the impact assessment that I did as well?
The only question I have is, you just mentioned the large is greater than 75, but you're not allowing it in any zone.
Correct.
So why do you even define it?
Because based on everything I've seen, you have to define a use and then allow it or disallow it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that may be right.
We did that with asphalt plants as well. Asphalt plants are excluded in any zone, and we have a definition of asphalt plant in the,
It's the cleaner way to do it.
yeah.
That's fine. I'm just
It's the cleaner way to do it.
want to make sure I'm clear.
Otherwise, it can get lost in ambiguity.
And that's why they're also separated into 3 separate articles. We talk about the definition first, make sure that's clear,
Right.
and then we talk about allowing or disallowing in the use table.
What happens if one article doesn't pass and the other ones do? So is it, if they all, if one passes, they all pass? Or what happens if we get tied up on, the first one passes, and then you get tied up on the use tables, and then you get tied up everywhere else? How does that affect your?
It depends on what the amendments are done. It depends on which articles, because we could still pass the definitions
Yeah.
and not pass the use tables. That, I think, would pose an issue down the road because it's unclear as to whether or not these uses are allowed or disallowed, but at least they're defined. It also depends on what amendments might come up at town meeting. So it's something we're going to have to figure out
Yeah.
on the fly.
Yeah, my gut tells me that we wouldn't do any great damage to ourselves passing all the definitions. And it's not, it's something, if we wanted to make any corrections there, that could be done in another 6 months.
Yeah, actually, we would,
How so?
because once you've defined it, if you don't allow it, it's disallowed. So,
Is that
so if the first
actually
two
true?
pass and the third one doesn't, you have
Okay.
effectively disallowed all distribution centers.
Would you agree with that, Evan? I mean, it may be something of a fuzzy point.
Ask Paul about that.
I mean, I'm not recommending that we pass
Just the same.
part.
I
Nancy's
think it has
assessment is
that
likely
potential.
correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very sloppy,
Yeah,
and it would work until someone challenges it.
yeah.
And at town meeting, we've had cases where we've gotten multiple related articles.
Yes, we
that
have, and
we have
one
to
of them's
figure
passed and
out.
one of them hasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also think that combining them into one article is even more messy and confusing. So it's something that we'll have to work with town council at town meeting on.
All right. Very good.
Okay. On the impact, figured I'd go over that. I unfortunately, I finished this afternoon, and so I didn't get electronic versions out to all of you yet, but I will do it right after the meeting. So I worked with the town engineering department and the GIS manager to pull actual building area for all of the IA properties, and crunch some numbers to see what would the impact of the, especially the third article about allowing and not allowing, what the impact would be on current businesses in that IA zone. And so, using the assumption that all of the businesses in that IA zone are distribution centers as defined, that means that 80% of those would be covered under the 20,000 square foot or less definition. And those would be allowed in the two zones by special permit. An additional 15 to 16% would be between the 20,000 and 75,000, and those would be allowed by special permit in the IA zone. And then, so that means a total of over 96%, 371 of them out of the 385 properties would be allowed by special permit. That means in the over 75,000 square foot category, 14 out of the 385 properties, or 3.5%, would not be allowed if they were a distribution center as defined. Now, if you look at those actual properties, 6 of them are office buildings. 1 of them is a warehouse as would be defined in the new zoning proposal. 1 of them is the DPW facility. 2 of them are manufacturing. I believe 3 of them are manufacturing / wholesale. I need to figure that out and confirm that, but I believe that is the case. And then only 1 of them, which is UPS, would be excluded as a distribution center in the current definition. So 1 definitely, and potentially total of 4, but I have to confirm whether those are manufacturing wholesale or manufacturing distribution to consumers. I believe, based on the businesses that I saw in those addresses, that those are wholesale businesses. So those would not be excluded. So if we assume that, then only 1 of the current properties in that zone would be excluded
Okay.
in the current.
That's UPS.
That's UPS.
Yeah.
So are you saying that your expectation is that a manufacturer that shipped direct to consumers would be excluded by that, would be not permitted by this?
If their primary business is manufacturing, then they should not be excluded.
Back to the definitions.
Yeah, I'm
We
looking
went
at
around-
definitions.
We went around this, but during I think the first work session,
Yeah,
and the primary purpose is a pretty straightforward zoning interpretation exercise. We've been doing that exercise for a long time, and it's been pretty consistent. It's not based upon square footage.
yeah.
So I think the conversations that we've had with the petitioner, it likely is looking at it a different way. But depending on, like this evening, I think you may have answered it slightly differently than in the past. But primary purpose is not really defined. What is defined is square footage here.
Okay.
And so I've brought that concept and theme up a number of times. How that plays out remains to be seen. What I can tell you is, and it goes without saying, it will be challenged.
Yeah.
Meaning
Yeah.
people,
Oh, absolutely.
If you're primary manufacturing,
You're not a distribution.
What-
then you're
what
not a
if-
distribution center by these definitions. So what's going to be
well,
challenged?
what if the manufacturing floor space is 30,000 square feet? and the remaining is warehouse distribution. You understand what I'm saying?
And it's
So-
more than
But they're
7.
manufacturing.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but
But
As long as we're all
where's the
clear on that.
proportionality that says it goes
Yeah, it's
this
like
way
when
or
you-
that
if
way? And the
you're-
same
if
thing's
you're-
true with
if you're-
retail.
So you're getting,
Hold on.
you're getting stuck in the,
Use for business.
if,
The-
if,
the,
if
you're getting
the
stuck
if the
in-
petitioner
in the
agrees
details here.
with what you're suggesting, then we're continuing interpretation of zoning in the same manner we're doing right now.
if you're manufacturing, you're manufacturing. And if you have even if you have a lot of square footage for distribution, your primary business is manufacturing. I think you're getting
As
caught
long
in the
as-
details
As
here.
long as that was clear, because at one point, I think that was a gray area.
I mean, you can sit and
I also have it in my FAQs about this. 195.5 permitted uses interpretation of Schedule Part B states when an activity might be classified under more than one use in the regulation schedule, the more specific classification shall govern. If equally specific, the more restrictive shall govern.
It's an interesting spin. It's actually, I kind of like that. Yeah,
He's done his homework.
okay. Very good.
So we have a mechanism in the
Something
zoning
of a mechanism, but at
already.
least we have guidance to assist the interpretation. Yeah. I mean, nothing is ever so clear that
Right.
you can't interpret it, but, yeah, and that's true of every
Everything.
single bylaw we
Everything.
got, so.
Did you go over that wording with Paul Haverty in terms of, did he agree with the way that you think it's going to be interpreted? That it would mostly be interpreted that way?
I've connected with him multiple times, and I haven't had any indication that he would see a problem with this.
He thought it was gray or in any way obtuse. It doesn't
Chris-
seem
Okay.
obtuse to
Chris,
me.
what's your interpretation or expectation of the difference between a retail use that may have an accessory delivery component and a delivery component that may have an accessory retail use?
Again, it goes back to the primary
Yeah.
Primary.
use. A Stop and Shop, they're primarily retail.
A grocery store.
They're a grocery store. They're retail. They're not a delivery piece. They may have delivery component
Yeah, that'd be
as
fine.
part of it, but their primary use is grocery store, retail.
So I think about some of the quilt shops that I frequent, and they have, 50 to 100,000 square feet of retail floor, but that retail floor is also storage for their online
Yeah.
sales business.
Near retail.
And
Restaurant.
their online sales are 90% of their business, even though the public has access, and it is indeed a retail floor. Their business is an online
Doesn't
delivery
matter.
business.
They're
What?
they're selling things, they're retail.
And that's what you want, so.
They're
it
not
wouldn't-
primarily delivering things, they're primarily selling things.
There's a
How do
storefront.
But how do you, because then I'm totally losing the concept of this.
The concept is, do you want distribution centers in this town? Yeah, that's what we're voting for. At the end of this can be wordsmith to kingdom come, but at the end of the day, what we're voting for here is simple. Do you want a distribution center? Yes or no? We'll fix whatever comes up, and yes, it's not perfect, because no bylaw is ever perfect. But that's what we're voting for today, that's what's
So-
being presented.
So wait a minute. When you say distribution versus retail, your premise is that whatever the operational company is doesn't own the materials that are in that storage facility. That it is passing through there on its way from the company selling it to the customer and being stored there in process? And that if the company actually owns it, they're a retail store and therefore it's okay as a retail store?
No,
I don't understand what you're doing. Honestly, I don't, given the the business models that exist out there.
Well,
I mean, I understand you want to stop trucks, and I get that. And I understand you don't want low-paying jobs in town, and I get that. But I'll be hanged if I understand what exactly these businesses are that we're limiting it to.
Yeah.
And I
This-
just
this is
don't.
Whether it's for the owner there.
I'm sorry, but I don't.
Chewy.com, they own their inventory. Amazon owns some of their inventory.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Those are not retail operations,
Why would you say Chewy is not a retail operation?
because they're selling, but distributing. They don't have a brick and mortar retail store. And that's not their model.
but
I remember going past a Chewy retail store in Cambridge.
But then it's a retail store. and
Then
not
it's a retail
distribution-
store.
And not a distribution center. And we want retail stores. So if Amazon wanted to open up a store up in Drum Hill, take over Walmart space and open up a store, that's fine. But they want to build another UPS on 129, that is not. So Nancy, if you're not comfortable with the wording, then your answer is no on this. You vote no and call it a day and let town meeting take it from there. But this is a step, and we'll deal with the rest of it and all those, what ifs when they come. At the end of the day, what we're all voting on is, do we want distribution centers in town? Yes or no? And whether or not we need a comma here or a capital there is irrelevant at this point.
Not really, that's
No.
what our job is to do.
Yeah, but we've had,
Not to fix
2
it in
months?
6 months. If you're gonna put this in be part of the law of town.
We should have fixed it
should've-
2 years ago.
Well, we only got it a
Tried.
month ago, 2 months ago.
Well, where
We could
where
have
was
done it.
the planning
But
board
we
2
didn't.
years
So,
ago?
Did you respond to this email with your comments?
No,
You
I
say-
actually,
You say we haven't done anything, but you didn't bring it up to make this change.
I
You've said
brought
that
up a lot
before.
of things that I wanted to do,
We're
and
working on the zoning conflict, which takes time, and as you know, takes time. But you made that comment last time that we should have done it. Well, you didn't suggest it for 2 years.
Well,
You shouldn't say it to the
and
whole
let's,
board.
and let's keep in mind
from a
that
master
actually a
planning
couple of years
concept,
ago.
we said we needed to
Right, so-
locate
so
these
this
things
is
in
going to town
town.
meeting.
So this
We
is
know why this is
adverse
here.
to the
Yeah.
master
Know
plan.
why it's
It's a
here.
specific
We agree-
case.
We
We
understand.
understand why you're doing it, okay?
So it's in front of us and we need to vote tonight.
Okay, and we will. Very good. Okay, you got any more? I'm inclined to open it up to, I'm sure there will be some public comment.
Yep.
I suspect some of it's going to come in on Zoom. I would ask people to keep it brief. I think we've heard a lot of very good arguments. And I will say this conversation has been absolutely fascinating. Regardless of which way this goes at town meeting, it's been an eye opener digging into the mechanics of all of this, and it really is a sign of some changes in our socioeconomic structure countrywide.
And I'm appreciative for your
Oh, yeah.
willingness to
good.
compromise and collaborate.
As am I of the board. I appreciate that.
Well, hey, certainly keeping us busy. Okay, looks like I got somebody queued up. Oh, hi. Wonder who this is.
Yeah, Joel Luna, 10 Carter
Yeah.
Drive. I'm starting to feel like a planning board groupie.
Well,
This
I
is
think my
good.
attendance has been very good these past meetings. The only thing I wanted to say, which, first of all, I think Chris's presentation was very good, was actually more from last meeting. It sounded like, in particular, some of the people were concerned about, well, if we put restrictions on these businesses, we wouldn't be able to have them in town. They'd just be prevented from occurring. And the thing that came to mind was, well, even if, for example, it's considered not applicable, or if it doesn't meet the criteria, or it meets the criteria being too large, and therefore you're going to exclude it. That's a determination made by the building inspector. There always is a path for appeal to building inspector decisions. I think that's in part why it's good to have a definition for the prevented use, because then the zoning board would look at that and say, well, does that really meet it or not, or whatever. But I just want to say, yeah, there is a path of appeal for people. It's not the end of the road if the building inspector says it doesn't work. And then the only other one I wanted to say was, I think it'd be a very good thing for the planning board to get behind us, just from the perspective of, otherwise, if you don't, it looks like the planning board is not interested in, containing this kind of thing. And I think in general, planning board wants to look like it is. Whatever that level is, I think it's a good thing for the planning board to get behind. So that was it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Well, we are a public hearing, and I think at this point, we continue to open it up to the public. Is there anybody online that is raising their hand?
Not right now.
Nobody online, okay.
Tim Shanahan has joined us as well. Tim Shanahan has joined us,
Oh, hi, Tim.
and Paul McDougal is online, and Eric is online.
Okay, so we've got the full boat. All right, I don't see any more public comment. I think it behooves us to close the public hearing and get to a vote on this,
Move
maybe
to
with a
close
little
the public
discussion.
hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to close the public hearing, in favor?
Aye.
Tim? Aye. Okay,
Paul?
thanks. Paul, okay. Unanimous. Okay, so here we are. We have this proposal in front of us. It's going to town meeting, regardless of what we do, of course. But the question really is, do we support it with an affirmative vote? Do we not support it with an affirmative vote, or do we take no action? And I don't like to take no action. So let's take it around for a round of discussion, and then let's bring it to a vote. Who wants to go first?
I think we've discussed it at nauseam. I'm sorry, but like.
Way more than it needs.
Yeah, between this and email and.
Yeah. There's been a lot of activity on this. It's got a lot of people thinking,
So,
which is a good thing.
Evan, has the emails that went around been made a public record?
No,
No. Okay.
no. I mean, they are a public record, but no
So
one's,
my response to Chris is not public record? And his response to me is not a public
it is,
record or
it
to
is a
Nancy?
public record, however, no one's requested them.
Oh, okay, but it goes in the file.
Yes,
It's available to anybody that wants it, yeah.
That's fine. I just didn't know if, because there was a conversation going on,
Yeah.
is it made for public
yeah,
record?
so as Chris mentioned, I think the context of those were individual discussions.
They were, but they were to a group.
Correct. So this evening, as part of your deliberation, ideally, the board is making a recommendation.
Yes, exactly.
And ideally, the individual comments in which the board agrees or disagrees are then tabulated, because at town meeting, if it's a split vote, they're likely to be asked, the board is likely to be
Yeah,
asked,
yeah.
why and how did you vote the way you did?
Well,
Yeah, we're likely to be asked almost no matter what.
Right, right. So my point is that while Mike Walsh may have a very particular reason to vote the way he does, the other board members who are voting
Yeah.
the same way Mike may not agree with his particular reason for
Right,
For the vote.
exactly. It's like
Right.
these split decisions in the Supreme Court that we've had
So
lately.
I may be overanalyzing this, it may not be a split vote. But if it is a split vote, and it's a close, like a 4-3, I would strongly
Yeah.
encourage you to be able to,
Okay.
when you get to town meeting, to be able to articulate as a board, and hopefully there are some
Okay, well,
commonalities.
may I suggest then that when we go around and actually vote on this, that each member, at least each member who is so inclined, may want to say a word or two about precisely why they're voting the way they're voting. I intend to do that. And I'm thinking that if the rest of us do, at least, a brief sentence or two, then anybody who's truly interested can reference the recording of this meeting and can understand where we're coming from.
They can also poll us at town meeting.
And they can poll us at town meeting as well.
And ask us why we wrote it a
Right.
certain way or not.
And I suspect that they may, or at least it's a distinct possibility. So, okay,
I can go first.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to support this. I am opposed to the building of large distribution centers. I'm comfortable with the sizes as they've been delineated and the definitions as they've sought to clarify and hone in specifically on distribution centers without preventing the development of other businesses that may have an ancillary aspect of distribution.
Okay. Thank you. That's very good. That's precisely the kind of stuff that we need to be able to express at town meeting.
So I'll give you my comment. I will not be in favor for this.
Okay.
Because I do not want distribution centers in this town as well as you, okay? I just don't like the way this came about. It sets a precedent that is gonna be, you're gonna have it every time someone wants to oppose a project in this town. I sent an email, which you guys all responded to, which you guys all saw, and Nancy, thank you for responding to his as well, but I am a little surprised by some of the other members not responding. And I think that when I looked at you compared to Chris, the proponent, compared to Acton, so I went back to Acton, and I looked at their distribution centers. They're not allowed in across the board, but they're allowed in a lot of their zones based off of the sizes. So I agreed with the 20,000 square foot. I agree with the 50,000 he wants to do, but I think the larger one should be up to the planning board, special permit, just like we do for other controversial projects that come through town. Because there may be something that in the outskirts of town, in 5 years from now, that we may want to do. This does not allow any movement by the planning board, so this is just my.
Yeah, it's taking the power away from the planning
It's
board, so
taking-
it's about power.
But
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear.
We're elected to answer it. It's our
We're
power.
elected to do this.
We're elected to talk about this. And that's why we've gone through multiple things. We looked at the IA up at North Route 40, which ended up getting turned down because of controversial comments at the end, but that took us almost 12 months to get to. This is taking 2 months to get to, or 3 months to get to, and I agree, we should have addressed it, right? Deirdre, we should address it. We should put it on a list of things that we want to talk about. There's a lot of things in this book. I'm sorry, I'm not holding to your 2 minutes.
No,
but
that's okay.
There's a lot of things in this book that are outdated.
Oh,
This has
yeah.
been picked because of one particular project. We all know what that is, okay? And we don't have to mention the name. But I think it's wrong.
No.
And I think, and I think we should be able to, this should be allowed in the CB zoning district as well as IA under special permit. And that's my comments, and everything that I recommended to Chris was denied. So when he comments about the ones that he did not take, those are my suggestions, and so I will not be voting in favor of this.
Can I just ask, the CB you think should be allowed in any size
All planning board zoning, special permit.
for 20,000?
Yep,
50,000?
special permit.
And CB is commercial?
Well, remember, of course,
Commercial,
that
so-
we have in town
There's a
the
lot of areas.
major business complex, so anything over 20,000 square feet is going to be a special permit anyway, and that special permit was put in place specifically to deal with some of the kinds of issues that we find associated with distribution centers and other large operations that use a lot of trucks. It's traffic, it's noise, and it's neighbors. And
agree.
so we have a mechanism in place. Well, anyway, I'll finish.
Can I ask you
that.
another
Just my-
question?
Yeah.
If we were to modify this use table, I mean, are you just opposed to this because of the way it arose and that's it? Or if there were modifications made,
No,
such as the
I'm
ones
opposed
you
to that, but no, if there
suggested?
was modifications made to my suggestions that I made to allow the planning board some movement down the road for the unknowns that may be good for the town.
Right.
This is just one step
So
across.
why wouldn't we just go to town meeting if a developer came and it was perfect, and we all said it was perfect, and it's what we want, like UPS when it originally came into Chelmsford.
Yep.
And why wouldn't we just go to town meeting, do an overlay? That gives the power to the town and not to the developer, so we can drive how that development is going. Why wouldn't you do
Oh,
that?
I can guarantee that the fifth time that we had 6 special town meetings in a year to deal with stuff like that,
No, we
people
would
would
do
get
an
a little sick of
overlay, and we
it.
wouldn't do 6 town meetings.
To be honest with you, Anita, I'm voting, here's the deal. Maybe it's a good thing that I'm voting against it, because everything that this planning board votes for unanimously doesn't pass. Okay?
Yeah.
So the town doesn't trust this group, okay? They don't, I don't know why we get elected for it, first of all, if we're all sitting here and they don't take our recommendations when we come to the planning board. So I think if you have a couple of no votes, it's probably gonna pass. In fact, I think if it was a unanimous no, it may still pass. So I think, so,
All right.
but I think if you get a unanimous, or if you get all 7 of us a yes, I'd put my money on saying it's not gonna pass in town meeting because of that.
Good point. Nan?
Oh, I'm not voting for this. I think it's the wrong way to approach it and the wrong thing to do. First of all, we've been trying desperately for over 10 years that I've been on the board to get more businesses in town, and this just chases them out. Secondly, the special permit for anything over 20,000 gives us the ability to evaluate site considerations for any use, including this one. So we already have the ability to turn down a distribution center if it is in the wrong place or arranged in the wrong way. So it's not needed. Thirdly, I believe that the problem is not distribution centers, it's traffic, and it's truck traffic. And if truck traffic is the real problem, we should be addressing truck traffic, not what goes on inside the building. So, yeah, I just don't think it's the right way to go about controlling those things that we really don't want for those sites that they're inappropriate for.
Okay.
And I believe that we already have the ability to do that under the existing bylaws.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, Tim, you out there? Well, I see his name on the screen,
How about Paul?
and Paul. Either one of you?
I can see Mike's point of view on this and Nancy's. At this point, it's a yes for me. Let it go to town meeting, and it's going to be amended.
Yeah, it's going to town meeting no matter what we do here, so.
Yeah, I would recommend it go to town meeting.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to hit
So,
the mute button in time. I'm going to be a no. I'm going to be similar to what Mike and Nancy said. You know, I think actually because they don't want it, I understand the traffic is a major issue and everything else. But like Mike said, something else may come down the road. And I don't like how it was brought up as well. So I'm going to be a no.
Okay.
Mike, may I? Paul, just as a note of detail, we're not voting on whether or not it goes to town meeting. We're voting on whether or not we endorse it for town meeting to approve it. So you might want to consider that.
I get that.
Okay.
I do get that.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm torn on it. I think something should be done, and this is the first step, I guess.
Okay.
I'm going to vote yes, and this is not just about traffic.
Okay.
It's about property values. It's about how the town of Chelmsford is viewed. And I quite, having distribution centers all along 129, when people get off Route 3 and they're coming to look at real estate, whether or not to buy a house,
Fair point.
I am concerned about my personal property tax and my value of my home. And a lot of residents in the town of Chelmsford, their home is their biggest investment,
It is
biggest
indeed.
assets. And I think if we don't do something right now, we're just exposing ourselves and exposing every resident. Furthermore, the process works. I'm not worried about the process. I mean, we have another citizens petition going in front of town meeting this fall. We've had multiple citizens petitions throughout. That is the process of how our government works. And if it offends you as a elected planning board member, I'm sorry, but that's how the government works. And just because you didn't know that this is how it could work doesn't mean it's wrong.
Okay.
I mean, like we have another, like I said, look at the warrant articles. Another citizens petition's been presented.
No, I think.
That's how it is.
yeah.
That's how government is.
All right, well, let me, that's the one thing that the chair gets to do is get the last word. So as you've probably gathered, I'm opposed to this, although I'm quite sympathetic to it. I'll restate that I believe that our major business complex special permit gives us all the oomph we need and is going to keep seriously large distribution centers out of places where they absolutely shouldn't be. And there are clearly some places in town where they absolutely shouldn't be. But leaves us enough leeway that in certain special situations that would have obviously to be presented to us and very carefully explained, that we might allow such a thing to happen. So I'm going to be a no. And with that, although we haven't actually officially called it to a vote yet, if somebody would,
I'll make a motion
yes?
that we,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You want
Can I
to
just say a couple things to clear a couple things up?
I think we closed the public input session.
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that kind of
include the
closes it up
petitioner?
at this point. This is really our,
This is our
You can open it up.
time.
we could.
Could open it up.
I think we've heard so much on this already that,
All right, so I'm looking for a motion.
I make
It
a-
can be a motion either way, it doesn't matter which way.
I make a motion that we endorse this citizen petition for approval at Fall Town Meeting.
Okay.
Are we doing individually, 1, 2, and 3? or are
Well,
we
we
doing?
can do a head count. I don't know, do you want to do 1, 2, and
I think we
I
should
think we
treat
should
them all
take it
together. They go
together.
They
together.
go together.
I think you should take it together.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion to endorse this in front of town meeting. Do we have a second?
I guess I don't understand what that means.
It means
We're
you're gonna
voting
vote-
on it.
If you're in favor of endorsing it in front of town meeting, you're gonna say yes. If
Okay,
you're not, you're gonna
perfect.
say no.
So
Okay.
second.
Okay.
We have, okay.
So motioned and seconded.
We'll take it around. In favor? 1 in favor, 2 in favor. Paul, you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, 3 in favor. Opposed?
Aye.
And I hear, okay, 4 opposed. It fails 4 to 3. That said, I want to reiterate that the conversation on this has been absolutely excellent. I think a lot of the ideas that have been presented here in the form of of support or not at town meeting are going to make their way into the decision process.
Before you adjourn,
Yes?
the petitioner did mention, the chair received an email invite from, I think, the town manager and FinCom chair.
Yes.
FinCom is taking this up, the petitioner will.
Yes, I
present
will
it
be there.
Tomorrow evening, and then Monday evening at Select Board.
Okay, so tomorrow evening at 6:30?
Tomorrow evening starts at 6:30, Select Board on the 26th also starts at 6.
Okay,
You can zoom in if that's more convenient. Certainly, any member can zoom in. My only message to you is, moving forward, it's the board vote, and then individuals are obviously more than have clearance to speak on their
oh,
own
yeah, I mean, at
behalf.
this point, the board has voted, and every single one of us can go up there and, at the podium and say our thing. And I suspect several of us will.
So before you close,
Yeah.
but I want to just put a note to that,
Yeah.
right? That, as we mentioned before, and in my email to the proponent, was to take this off the table, to
Yeah.
allow the planning board to work at this and get it back in the spring. That was turned down. So, but I think that even if this does pass, and if it doesn't pass,
Yeah.
we should continue this.
Absolutely.
And maybe there's an overlay area that we can
Yeah,
work
I
on
think
properly.
overlay is a good
And
solution.
then maybe there's, if it does pass, then we can make a future modification to it, that we get overlays, and there's
Yeah.
other areas in the town that potentially this could be.
Okay, yeah, I hear you, and I think your point's well taken. Okay, do we have any other business? Evan, do you have anything that we ought to address?
Not this evening.
Okay, well, Chris, Joe, I'll see you guys tomorrow at FinCom, and you'll be there, of
I'll
course.
be there.
Zoom in.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right,
Good night.
thanks.
Good night. Hey, thanks for zooming in, guys.